It's time for the best rivalry in college football.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. I'm your host, Matt Galatzan of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Welcome to Locked On Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I'm joined by Harrison Reno, and Harrison, it is time for the best rivalry in college football. It is, well, like if you can, I guess I'm doing that the wrong way. Texas and Texas A&M is the matchup this weekend. The Lone Star Showdown, my favorite rivalry in college sports. And both teams are coming into this game with a lot on the line. For Texas A&M, it is a trip to Atlanta for their first ever SEC championship appearance and potentially their first SEC title. For Texas, it is just trying to keep those college football playoff hopes alive and potentially, spoil the Aggies' SEC championship title run. Outside shot at the playoffs at best for the Longhorns at this point after their loss to Georgia a couple weeks ago. But nonetheless, this thing will be popping. We are both really excited about it. Excited to see two elite quarterbacks go at it. Marcel Reed and Arch Manning's stats and passing stats are incredibly similar. They've both been unbelievable over the last few weeks. And the unfortunate news for both teams is there's some casualties on the injury / availability front heading into this one. So we're going to get into that. We're going to take our first look at the Texas Longhorns, the challenges they present, how you can attack them, and then the keys to stopping them as well in our third segment, how to slow down that offense that has just been lighting up the scoreboard over the last few weeks, with the exception of the Georgia game a couple weeks ago. So let's get into the injury news and availability news. First, on the Texas A&M front, Mike Elko was asked about Le'Veon Moss and his availability for this football game against Texas, and it's not looking good. He said, we'll see, probably not, but we'll see. You would love to have him back for this football game, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to give it a go against a really good Longhorns rushing defense.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate news because you were expecting him to be back for this week and to have him, as close to 100% as possible for this game. So you have that two-headed monster in the backfield. Slow start this afternoon all around. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much this changes my outlook on this game. Like, obviously, you'd rather have Le'Veon Moss available, but you still have Ruben Owens. You still have, obviously, Marcel Reed, who adds into the run game in a really effective way for the Aggies. So, best case scenario, Ruben Owens still finds traction in the run game. You don't allow Texas to take away your run game. But to me, Matt, talking about the run, obviously the running backs are a big part of that. But to me, it's just the offensive line's going to have to play its best game. I think you can put multiple running backs back there, and you can find success if your front five is blocking it well. So, yes, it helps to always have an elite running back or a top-tier running back, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, this game is not going to be won with a running back or two. This is going to be one in the trenches. It's going to be one up front. It's going to be one in the open field. And we'll talk about that later in terms of keys to stopping this Longhorns team. So I don't know how much this changes my outlook in terms of how this game is. I don't know if Le'Veon Moss, because even just a few weeks ago, yes, we talked about maybe him probably being back by this game. But if you were to ask me, hey, what's the point differential in this game? I think I would have told you maybe a couple weeks ago, probably 7 to 10 points. I think I'm still in that range of 7 to 10 points. I don't know about you. You think it's closer? Are you closer now, or?
Well, we'll get into that. I think it's going to be a closer game. I do think it's going to be a closer game than people think, but we'll get into that later in the week when we do our picks. I don't want to spoil that ahead of time. But just a little tease. Yes, I do think it's going to be a close game. Shocker. I've said a lot of these Aggie games are going to be close. Yes, Le'Veon Moss being out would be detrimental to the Aggies to a certain degree. They have had some good rushing ability from Ruben Owens, from Amari Daniels, from EJ Smith, Jamarian Morrow, and Marcel Reed. So they've been okay in the rushing department without him. He's your best running back regardless. You would love to have him for this matchup. It's your most important game of the year to this point. It's probably your toughest game of the year at this point. I think Texas is a better team than Notre Dame, but I might be in the minority in that department. Either way, it doesn't matter. Some good news on the injury front for Texas A&M. Mario Craver and Ruben Owens, who were both hobbled and didn't play a whole lot against Samford this past week. By the way, we're not going to recap the Samford game, 48-0 over an FCS team. Good on you, Aggies. You did a great job. My bold prediction of the 12th man getting a sack did come true, however, so I just want to say that. But, so Amari Daniels and Ruben Owens should be good to go for this one, Ruben Owens and Mario Craver should be good to go for this one, which is going to be very big, particularly with Mario Craver against the Texas secondary that has been giving up a ton of big plays over the last few weeks.
Yeah, and the Texas secondary, you talk about that Georgia game, they busted some assignments in that game, even with Michael Taft being back in the secondary. Like, there were some blown coverages. I mean, I remember the one, Lennon Humphreys up the seam was a blown coverage. Looked like man-to-man. They bring the guy in motion. The safety in the corner, stick with one guy, leave the other guy wide open. So a lot of big bust over the last few weeks. I know a lot of that, obviously, before Taft came back, you put down to youth and experience. But even with the experience and the veteranness of Taft, they were still susceptible on the back end. It's a different Texas secondary than it was a year ago. This was, Matt, I believe, the number 2 passing defense in the country at this time last year, maybe number 1 at one point last year. Like, they had dudes all up and down the secondary, and they were playing really, really well as a unit. And they still got dudes. Manny Muhammad's still a really good football player. Grayson Littleton's a new name. Like, they still got a lot of good players, but they just haven't been playing as sound on the back end as they had maybe the last couple of years. So having Mario Craver, having Ruben Owens, I think those are, again, 2 athletes that you look at A&M's success this season, especially Mario Craver, and say they're not here where they're at right now without a Mario Craver and Kevin Concepcion. So it's nice to see, at least from the Aggie side, you're almost 100%, as close to being 100% in full strength as you possibly could be at this point in the year.
Yeah, I mean, Texas lost Thorpe Award winner Jade Barron to the NFL. They lost a really good safety, Andrew Makuba, to the NFL. They lost their secondary coach and passing game coordinator. He's now the defensive coordinator at, I believe, Georgia Tech, Blake Gideon. So they replaced him with Dwayne Akina, and I don't think that's gone very well. But Texas also benched a starting corner this past week against Arkansas and had a much better turnout from a true freshman in Cade Phillips in that starting spot. So maybe they figured something out. I would still lean Texas A&M in that department. Mario Craver or Casey Concepcion against true freshmen seems like a slam dunk to me personally, but, who am I to say? And then on the Texas side of things, number 1 out of the gate, Anthony Smith, linebacker. I believe he's a true sophomore. One of their better linebackers will be suspended for the first half of this game on Friday due to a targeting penalty against Arkansas. That could have been a bigger blow had Sark not announced after that football game that Anthony Hill, Texas's all everything linebacker, former Texas A&M commit, by the way, likely first-round NFL draft pick, will return for this game after missing the Arkansas game. So you're losing to Anthony Smith for the first half, but you're getting Anthony Hill back if you're the Texas Longhorns, and that's a pretty big deal for them.
And if I remember correctly, Matt, Anthony Smith's been more of a third down package, passing down, obvious passing down guy for
the
them.
most part, yeah.
So, this just means, hey, they still got Leona LaFau, still got Anthony Hill. Those will probably be your 2 primary backers. I guess Leona LaFau will now have to be a 3-down backer for them in any case, more this week than he has in weeks past. But it does bring up an interesting proposition in terms of question of how creative do they get with Anthony Smith or Anthony Hill, because they do like to move him around, use him as a chess piece, bring him off the edge sometimes. How creative do they get without having a Anthony Smith, a third guy that can come off the sideline and play in that spot? Obviously, another adjustment they've made at that backer position, they've been playing Trey more off ball. So what does he look like? Where is his usage on Saturday? A lot of questions in terms of how they will use their guys, because obviously Anthony Smith's been part of how they rotate in that position, depending upon the situation and the personnel on the opposite side of the field.
Yeah, and they'll put Trey Moore back there at some points in place of Anthony Smith in the first half. Brad Spence can get back there, but he has been a key piece of this Texas defense for the most part this year, especially over the last few weeks. So that could be a potentially big loss for them, but Anthony Hill coming back is a massive, massive upgrade for them at the linebacker spot.
Club hand or not.
Club hand or not, he might be the best linebacker in college football. Him, Torian York, and Arvell Reese are all right there together as three of the best linebackers in the sport. And it would be a massive, massive gain for them if he's able to play this full game and stay healthy. But let's get into Texas. Let's take our first look at the Texas Longhorns here in our segment coming up next, and kind of give you guys an idea of what to expect with this football team on both sides of the football, and whether or not we believe that this is a real threat to Texas A&M or kind of a more of a novelty. But we'll talk about that when we come back right after this. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month with up to 70% off of everything from sofas to spatulas. I recently upgraded my kitchen table from Wayfair, and it's completely transformed the room. If you ever hosted family for the holidays, you know how much difference a few new touches can make, and Wayfair makes that easy. So don't miss out on early Black Friday sales. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th. I don't know about you, but I don't know if I'm ready for Christmas yet, Harrison. I still got a lot to do. Football season's kept me busy, so I'm operating a little bit from behind, but that's okay. Let's get into our first look at the Texas Longhorns. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball, and if you're going to talk about this Texas offense, there is one thing to talk about right now, and that is Arch Manning. And I know that he was kind of a butt of the joke in the first half of the season. He had a real bad game in the first half against Ohio State. He played awful against UTEP. He played awful against Kentucky. But outside of those three games, he really has played well all season long. In 8 of his 11 games, he's played really well, and particularly over the last 5 weeks, starting with the second half against Mississippi State, against Vanderbilt, against Georgia. He was really good. He just didn't have any help from anywhere else, and that really is what stopped the Longhorns in that game. And then, obviously, this past weekend against Kentucky, he goes for a career-high 389 yards. He becomes the first SEC quarterback since Dak Prescott in 2014 to catch a touchdown, rush for a touchdown, and throw for a touchdown. He had 6 total touchdowns in the game, granted against a very weak Arkansas defense. But he is without a doubt their offensive MVP this year, and it really hasn't been close when you break it down across the board.
Yeah, and I want to give a little bit of credit, although this is also it's credit with a backhanded kind of criticism. It took how many weeks for them to kind of figure out their offense identity, especially in the passing game. Like, that's been as much of a credit. Sark has figured some things out, not having to run every play 10 to 15 yards downfield in terms of passing concepts. Done a little bit better of a job of not getting his quarterback killed, which is awesome. Because through so much at the beginning of the year, it was just Arch was getting hit and hit and hit and hit and hit. And obviously culminated in that Mississippi State game where he got taken out for a little bit. Was it the Mississippi State game?
Yeah, he got a concussion at the end of the Mississippi State game and then somehow was able to come back for Vanderbilt. I don't know how, but he did, and he played really well in that game.
Yeah, so it's Arch has been playing his best football down the stretch. He's looking more like the quarterback that everybody thought he was going to be. And the biggest takeaway from this season, kind of like you said, he's played at a much higher level these last few weeks. I get it. It was a rougher start, but I think I don't know if I put all those issues in the UTEP game or whatever on him because I do think there was such a mass deterioration of the supporting cast compared to the expectations that it took a little bit to adjust. Like, he was going into the year thinking he was going to have one of the better offensive lines, one of the more explosive receiving cores, in a run game that had finally a fully healthy stable of backs. And it turns out he doesn't have that much explosives in the receiving core. He doesn't really have an explosive running back or even stable of consistent backs. He doesn't really have a really good offensive line. It's one of the worst offensive line Texas has had in a few years. And it's just all jumbled parts. And he's had to figure out ways to play, had to figure out how ways to win. And it took a little bit. It took Sark. I think that was my main criticism after that Florida game. It's, why are you so focused on a downfield play action passing attack when you can't run the ball and you can't protect long enough to make it? And Arch was playing superhero ball for a while. And now we've seen they've started to put some things together, started to help him out. And he's played at a really high level, Matt. He played at a really high level. And like you said, if it wasn't for his supporting cast being so bad, that game in Athens may not look the way it does.
Yeah, I believe they had 6 to 8 drops in that football game, some of which were on big explosive plays, like one to Ryan Wingo down the field that could have put Texas in scoring position. One stat that popped out to me earlier in the season that I saw on, I think it was on Twitter, heading into, I believe it was the Mississippi State game. It was one of the games in October, or I think it was a game in October. He had been hit as many times over 6 games, as Quinn Ewers had been hit the entire season in 2024. That's kind of an indication of how bad this offensive line has been. They made a change against Vanderbilt, and they brought in a new left guard. They moved their center to left guard and started a new center. And that seemed to pay dividends. And then against Georgia, it kind of took a step back to a degree. And then against Arkansas, they played better. But Arch has just figured out a way, based on what I've seen, to operate very well and continue to stay on schedule despite dirty pockets. And that is something that has been the main point of his growth. But Texas hadn't faced a pass rush like they're about to face with Texas A&M. And that offensive line has not seen a pass rush like they're about to face with Texas A&M. And that could be the biggest advantage for Texas A&M in this football game. So that will be something to watch in terms of the Texas A&M defense versus the Texas A&M offense, which we'll get into a little bit later in the third segment. As far as the Texas defense goes, that is an elite pass rush going up against an elite offensive line with the Aggies and a quarterback in Marcel Reed, who is tremendously talented at escaping and getting and picking up yards on the ground and keeping plays alive, and really making something out of nothing. He struggled in the first half against South Carolina with pressure and with making bad decisions. In the second half, he was unbelievably lights out, ended up with a career-high 439 yards passing, and that was an indication to me of his growth. Where I think Texas A&M can really get an advantage here over the Longhorns is in that secondary, like we talked about earlier. Mario Craver, Casey Concepcion, Ashton Bethel-Roman, Terry Bussey, Isaiah Williams, all of those guys should be able to operate in some space against Texas, because what Texas has done defensively over the last couple of weeks, to their detriment, which was really expounded upon against Georgia, was they don't trust they trust Malik Muhammad. It seems like they don't trust the other side of the field. So they've been playing a lot of zone, a lot of soft coverage, a lot of cushion on that side of the field, and teams have just been able to drive the football down the field on them as a result. And they've been giving up a lot of explosive plays. And if there is a team that is going to exploit explosive plays in the SEC against anybody, it's the Texas A&M Aggies. It's this team right here. It's this team right here. They're going to do it because they have the most explosive playmakers in the conference at running back, at quarterback, at wide receiver. And if Texas doesn't come to play and play their best defense, Texas A&M could eat them up.
Yeah, and I think offensively, looking at the Texas defense, the one thing I think Georgia did good stuff with was motion, using lots of it. We've seen the trend in the NFL over the last like 5-6 years. Motion pre-snap, always have it, always use it, because it gives you your players the best chance to win in terms of getting all the processing of the information, getting more information, and beyond that, it just puts defenses in a bind. And I think Georgia did a good job of attacking them with motion pre-snap, and a couple of those coverage busts by Texas were created with those. Georgia's first touchdown, the former Texas A&M Aggie, Noah Thomas, was created thanks to the motion. They motioned him. They motioned Dylan Bell across the formation, and Noah Thomas's corner, Jalen Gilbo, rotates to the post safety position as if that's where he's supposed to be. They have two post safeties in the middle of the field, and he's just completely out leveraged. Just right after the motion, just completely beaten, taken right out of the play. Not going to be able to keep up with the corner out because it's just beat by leverage, pre-snap. So using that to your advantage, but also, like you said, using the explosive playmakers that you do have on the outside, attacking these corners, attacking the cushion. If they're going to give you a free 4 yards, take the free 4 yards. And I promise you, if you keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it and taking those free plays, eventually they will creep forward, and eventually they will start selling to stop that. And then boom, Mario Craver over the top, Kevin Concepcion over the top. Like it's just a process. And I almost look at it as you kind of have to body blows this defense. You're not going to go out here. You're not going to rip off 75-yard, deep bombs from the jump. Maybe if they bust a coverage, you might, but you're going to have to kind of eat your vegetables before you go eat your dessert, which is taking the top off this defense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And another thing that has been plaguing this Texas defense a little bit over the last couple of weeks as well, at least in my opinion, is the tackling from the safeties has not been good. There was a couple of plays in the Arkansas game this past week where Michael Taff, I don't know if you remember, it was Leonard Fournette against Ole Miss. I think it was 2017, and he just completely destroyed the soul of Deontay Anderson in the secondary. Michael Taff had that happen to him this past weekend against that Washington Junior kid who's just an absolute freight train. So the tackling has not been tremendous back there. The eye discipline has not been tremendous back there. So we'll see what Texas comes up with this week to try to stop the Texas A&M offense. I don't have too much confidence if I'm a Texas Longhorns fan in being able to stop this Texas A&M offense. So what you're probably going to have to do if you're Texas, if you want to win this game, is just outscore Texas A&M. And that's a very, very difficult proposition because nobody's been able to do it this year. They're undefeated. They're 11-0. And they are having the best season in school history. And if they win this game, it will be the best season in school history, regardless of what happens in the SEC championship. But let's change gears once again. When we come back, we're going to talk about some keys to stopping this explosive Texas offense that over the last few weeks has been much, much better than it was in the first half of the season. And how you slow down this Arch Manning led passing attack. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Getting actual tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that delivers the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The app makes it super simple. I can even see the exact view from my seat before buying. And honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Well, over the last few weeks, Texas has scored 45 on Mississippi State, 34 against Vanderbilt, 10 against Georgia, and then 52 against Arkansas this past weekend. That's three of the more susceptible defenses in the SEC that they were able to do this against. But nonetheless, it is clear if you watch this football team from an objective lens, they have gotten much more efficient. They have gotten much better in terms of staying on schedule, creating explosive plays. Arch Manning has been very good, like we said earlier in the show. And if their receivers play well, this is a very difficult offense to stop. They have issues running the football because of the poor offensive line. So it's still not a perfect offense, but they are very good at creating explosive plays and staying on schedule, like I said. So I'll go first with my first key to stopping this Texas offense, and it's very simple. When you're one-on-ones up front, you don't need to blitz. You don't need to bring 5 or 6. You don't need to blitz your linebackers too often. Cassius Howell and the rest of this defensive line, if they can get after and win their one-on-ones against this very susceptible Texas offensive line that is particularly susceptible on the interior, they should be able to get Arch off of his spot and create some very difficult plays for him to make downfield.
Yeah, and just getting back there in his lap. And you don't necessarily have to bring him to the ground all the time. You just have to be there to affect him, to make him maybe throw that ball a little bit earlier than he wants to, or heck, maybe he has to eat it. Maybe he has to throw it away. Like, yeah, I don't think you have to really get aggressive and send 6 or 7. God bless, don't send 7. You don't have to send more than maybe 5, and just win your one-on-ones and attack them up front. That's what Georgia did really well last season, is using a lot of, one-on-oneing them to death and say, hey, our guys are better than yours, and then go out there and do that, win those reps. For me, Matt, it's cliche, but I'm going to explain it because it's more true than it's ever been with Steve Sarkisian offenses. Texas is making you play in space, and you have to tackle in space. I think it's key numero dos, in my opinion, because like you said, if you can win up front and your one-on-ones and you don't have to get creative to find ways to bring pressure, then you're automatically setting yourself up for a lot of success. But if Texas doesn't have to hold the ball for more than 3 seconds to get the ball out because they can use the quick passing game, then it doesn't matter how good your front is because they're getting the ball out before you can even hit them. So for me, you're going to have to tackle in space. You're going to have to do it a lot. They are quick passing game you to death. They will screen you. They will hit you with a couple slants. They will hit you on drags. They will release the tight end, try and leak him out. They've gotten really good at just getting the ball to the most explosive athlete on the field and letting him do the rest. Even if that means he's starting 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, they will get Ryan Wingo the football on a screen. They will get Ryan Wingo the ball in the flat. They will get Ryan Wingo the ball on a slant. They will find ways to incorporate Ryan Niblett, who I don't know if he's been on the field, a football field with an athlete faster than he is this year. We'll see if he does encounter that at all in his college career. But they're really good at that right now, Matt. And that's been the key to their success, is they've taken the offensive line completely out of the game plan at times and say, hey, this is just going to be our run game. We're going to get it to Ryan Wingo on this quick screen and see what he picks up. And outside of the Georgia game, they've been really effective at doing that. And I don't suspect Texas will find a run game, which is why usually we talk about making teams one-dimensional to incorporate your pass rush. I don't think Texas is going to come into this game plan wanting to try and even commit to the run. They found ways to run on Georgia somewhat successfully in the first quarter. Then they completely abandoned it for the rest of the 3 quarters of that football game. So I think Steve Sarkisian knows what he has to do well and what he has to do to win. And I don't think it's going to involve the run game. Now, granted, I could be wrong. I could have a totally different read on this. But for me, it's you have to shut down the screen game. And I don't know if you can shut it down, but you can certainly minimize the damage that it poses.
Yeah, absolutely. And during his media
really wrong right there.
That's okay. During his media availability today, Steve Sarkisian basically hinted that at least in my opinion, that they are just going to really rely on throwing the football around the field for the majority of this football game. He was asked if they wanted to establish the run this week, and he more or less said, "We're going to do whatever it takes to win the football game," which, in my opinion, means I can't run the football. I need Arch to go out there and throw for 400 and probably throw the ball 40 times. And I think that plays into Texas A&M's advantage, because Texas A&M's biggest susceptibility so far this season has been the ground game. And if you abandon it against a team that is average at stopping the run, I think you're leaving something on the field, or I think you're leaving something there that you could have that could help keep you on schedule. But Texas does like to use the short passing game as kind of like an extension of the running game. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll get into a lot more of this Texas A&M breakdown as the week goes on. This is the biggest week in college football. It's rivalry week. This is the best rivalry in college football. The Lone Star Showdown is back for the second year in a row. It's never going to go away again, at least for now. And hopefully it never does. But this is my favorite rivalry game. It has been since I was a kid. And I can't wait to see what happens on Friday. I will be there in the press box, and I can't wait to see the atmosphere in Austin, because it's the first time that Texas A&M has been there since 2010, I believe. And I think these two teams match up very well. I think it's going to be a very exciting game. It's going to be a very high-scoring game, and there's probably more on the line in this game than there has been in a really long time. Last year, both teams were playing for a spot in the SEC championship. This year, Texas A&M is playing for a spot in the SEC championship. Texas is playing to keep their college football playoff hopes alive, however slim they might be. And it's going to be a good one. But we'll get into this game, like I said, a lot more as the week goes on. We'll have a crossover guest from Locked On Longhorns. We'll have Harrison back this week to do our weekly picks. And we'll go over a whole lot more as the week goes on. So, but that's going to do it for another episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your second listen, please check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship game and every game in between. Follow Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast, download our podcast. We are on every major podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all that stuff. Find us there. And don't forget to follow Harrison on X at Harrison Reno. Follow me on X at Matt Galatzan. And follow Texas A&M Aggies on SI for all your latest updates on Texas A&M news. And we will see you tomorrow. It's too bad Vanderbilt's not playing in this game, Harrison.
They're playing Tennessee. Hate week's always here.